What's going on, guys, and welcome to my Friday Night SmackDown audio review for the February 7th, 2025 edition. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well, enjoying your weekend so far. Lot to get into from the show on Friday night. Yet another 3-hour slog. And I thought, honestly, the show overall was better than last week's show by far. I was not at last week's SmackDown as I originally expected to be. Ended up working out for the better because that show sucked. As a go-home show for the Royal Rumble, those 3 hours were a complete waste of time. The show before that was also a reminder as to why the Blue Brain does not need to be 3 hours long. And this show also kind of gave me that indication, but I thought overall it was a good show. That ending, though, man. I tweeted out late last night after finishing the show, and I tweeted about the releases, which we'll get into immediately here on the stream in a second. But that ending had me like, what the fuck are we even doing on Friday nights? We'll get into it. I will talk about it as to why I did not like the ending to SmackDown. And I know I'm not in the minority that feels that way either. That ending to SmackDown on Friday night was just fucking terrible. And it had me thinking, is it Groundhog Day? I know we passed Groundhog Day about a week ago, a couple days ago, earlier in the month. I'm thinking, is this Groundhog Day? Why are we back to Cody Rhodes feuding, being involved with the Bloodline? That makes absolutely no fucking sense. Solo Sikoa being back, doesn't really surprise me entirely, just because, he was due back at some point. I kind of figured when we saw Jacob Fatu earlier in the show that we would see Solo Sikoa at some point, probably back with Jacob Fatu and, teasing their match and feud, storyline, whatever. What we did not need, though, was Cody Rhodes being back involved with the fucking Bloodline. I will have a rant about that as we get going here in a little bit. The overall show, I thought, like I said, was fine, and I may have been exaggerating when I said SmackDown is cooked in my tweet late last night. But it did have me wondering, what the fuck are we even doing on Fridays? I tweeted that meme. If you follow me, if you don't, go follow me at WrestleRant on Twitter. But it's that meme of the guy on the bus. Like he's at like a mountainside. One side of the bus, the guy's looking outside and, into the nice, beautiful sunshine out on the horizon. He's all optimistic and positive and whatnot. And that to me is Raw. I've been very much enjoying Raw in recent weeks since they moved to Netflix. They found a format that clicks, that works. The 2.5-hour window is perfect. They fill the time effectively. The show feels worthwhile. There's stuff to watch for. Great promos, really good matches most weeks. SmackDown, it just feels like complete fucking filler. It's the other side of the bus where that guy's looking at the mountainside and there's really not a whole lot to get excited about. He's depressed. He's sad. That's SmackDown to me. SmackDown is not awful. We are not in SmackDown circa 2018, circa 2019. We're not even in SmackDown 2013, 2014. But I will tell you this. This is the least consequential SmackDown has felt in a very long fucking time. Since they moved to 3 hours, it is so fucking apparent to me that they are just desperately trying to kill time. Desperately trying to kill time. I mean, they have 3 hours to work with. And what did Triple H say? Until June? May? Brother, I don't know if I can make it that long. This show is just a fucking chore to sit through most weeks. It is completely ridiculous. And I don't apologize for the language. We're going to get into it. I'm going to have a lot more to say about that ending specifically. I could not believe what I was seeing when I saw Solo Sikoa come out in a fucking hoodie like it was September of 2022, standing over Cody Rhodes. I'm thinking, what year is this? Why are we doing this again? What's the fucking point? I don't get it. So we'll get into the releases in a second. I will also look at your chat. So if you're tuning in now, be sure to like the video. Of course, if you're tuning in after the fact, like the video. All that support is greatly appreciated. If you want to find out when we go live, you'll be notified immediately. If you're like, fuck, I missed him when he was live, and we can talk about SmackDown. We can commiserate about SmackDown together. Be sure to hit that bell button to be notified every single time we go live here on the channel and put up new videos. So all that support is greatly appreciated. We had a lot of people in the chat when we went live for WrestleRant Radio on Thursday. That was awesome. I would love to get some more people in here today. But already we got a couple different people. We got Chris Wolf saying SmackDown is such a joke at this point. He put that in before we went live. Daniel Malcolm also joining us saying these releases ... which we'll get into momentarily. And Boogs Cruz saying the weekly shows do absolutely not feel worth tuning into. I mean, SmackDown itself, personally, feels that way to me. Raw, I think has been bit more worthwhile in my opinion. I've been enjoying Raw in recent weeks on Netflix. SmackDown, I just do not get that same sense of enjoyment or worthwhileness, if that's even a word, from watching on Friday nights. But his second comment was, You're almost getting the same feeling of when SmackDown was just a Raw recap show 12 or so years ago when you watched the show, not in terms of recaps, but how pointless it feels. That's what I'm saying. I mean, I don't want to go that far and to say that SmackDown is what it was in 2012, 2013, because it does have a distinct roster compared to that point when they were really just doing rematches and recaps and no real important angles. We've had we have had some like important matches and angles and progression of storylines on SmackDown in recent weeks, but it just doesn't really feel like it's been enough to make it feel like it's on the same level of Raw and Monday nights. I mean, it's not entirely recaps, but like they're doing the following. They're following the formatic formula. That's not even a fucking. I don't know if you know what I'm saying, but they're following the formula of setting up the main event match, not advertising in advance, and setting it up in the opening segment. We see enough of that shit on Raw. We do not need it on SmackDown as well. I miss the days where they announced multiple matches and segments for SmackDown in advance, and they weren't constantly adding new shit based on, oh, Miz and Andrade had a backstage segment. Let's have a match between them later on in the night. Damian Priest and Carmelo Hayes having a match or having a encounter backstage instead of saving it for next week. Let's just do it tonight. And it just makes SmackDown feel all the more inconsequential when you're wasting time that way. I thought the mic work between the three guys in that triple threat on this show, the Elimination Chamber qualifying match, I thought the mic work was very good, but it felt like what you only heard from those three guys because they wanted to kill time. They had to get through the 3 hours. That was what it felt like to me. So we'll get to SmackDown in a moment for the February 7th, 2025 edition. We do want to quickly talk about the releases from Friday night. I guess they broke during SmackDown. I did not watch SmackDown live. I tuned on to, I turned on Twitter, X, whatever. I went on X after I was finished watching the show, so I wasn't spoiled for the show or whatever. And I saw a whole litany of releases that Fightful confirmed, PW Insider, and there was actually one more confirmed this morning, that being Isla Dawn. For those of you watching now, not sure if you're aware, but she had tweeted out this morning. She made a comment on Twitter about, she went from being like the Queen Witch in NXT and NXT UK to being Raw's baddest bitch or whatever she said, to now where to next, she had mentioned. And now she is on free agency for the next 90 days. So Isla Dawn is also officially gone from WWE, and hopefully Alba Fire is not joining her. I think Isla Dawn is good. I was never really her biggest fan in NXT UK and NXT. She's been in a team with Alba Fire now for years, probably the last 2 or 3 years. I think they've been a team. And they had success. They were former NXT Women's Tag Team Champions, WWE Women's Tag Team Champions. She had that great moment in Scotland over the summer where she won the belts alongside Alba Fire in their native country in Scotland. That Clash of the Castle. Now they're no longer in the company, or at least she's no longer in the company. I don't know about Alba Fire. I would like to see Alba Fire get a sustained singles push, but that might mean nothing if I go on to X after this review is over and we see that she's been cut from the company. That is entirely possible. It is very possible that Alba Fire is also no longer with WWE, but hopefully not. Hopefully that's not the case. But Isla Dawn is indeed gone from WWE. I can't say this is a major loss. I don't really think they had any major plans for her on her own. But to release one of them and not the other, hopefully it's Alba Fire who gets pushed out of this and also isn't just released. Daniel Malcolm said, was Isla the one who lost her mother, or was that Alba right before Clash? That was Alba Fire. I think Alba Fire's mother had come to visit her, because obviously she lives in the States now for, WWE and NXT and whatever. So I think her mother had come to visit her in Florida last year, and she got hit by a car while she was in Florida, which is just so fucking devastating. And she was off TV maybe for a week or two for that, and then she was back for Clash, where they won the tag team titles. So yeah, that was Alba Fire's mother had passed away. They've both been with the company for a very long time. Kaylee Ray, now Alba Fire, joined in 2019. Isla Dawn's been with them even before that. Isla Dawn was one of the OGs of the NXT UK brand. For those of us that watched in the beginning, you would know that Alba Dawn or Alba Dawn, Isla Dawn has been there for a very long time. They probably just didn't really see main roster potential in her as a singles talent, so they let her go. Nathaniel Cranshaw had said, are we ever getting Rock versus Roman at WrestleMania? Honestly, with every year that passes that it doesn't happen, I get more and more skeptical. We almost got it last year, and the timing was so terrible they changed course, thankfully. But if they're not doing it this year and they still haven't given us Rock versus Cody, which kind of seemed like the next match Rock would have before we got to Rock and Roman, Quite honestly, I'm kind of seeing that window close and close by the year. Rock's not getting any younger. I honestly, at this point, I don't want to say it's definitely not happening, but I'm getting less and less optimistic that we're getting Rock and Roman at any point at WrestleMania. Boogs Cruz, I'll get to your comment in just one moment. I do want to mention the next release here of who was cut over the last week. This was another NXT cut. Alba Dawn or Isla Dawn wasn't an NXT cut, but this was not involved in the cuts from Friday. But I think it is worth mentioning, just because he wasn't a part of those cuts, but he was cut in the last week. That being Duke Hudson, the former GSU member, who honestly, out of all the cuts that were released from WWE or soon to be released from WWE in the coming days, weeks, or have already been cut and whatnot. Because Sonya Deville was another person who got cut, but she's not officially released yet. I think they're just not renewing her contract, but she still is technically there. Duke Hudson, to me, was honestly the most disappointing. He's been in a tag team comedy group in Chase U for the last number of years. But he was a guy that I really thought would go a little bit farther than he did. He was on the main roster for a quick cup of coffee at the beginning of the Thunderdome era, the pandemic PC era back in 2020 alongside, I think, Shane Thorne, actually. And that was the initial Hurt Business. They were managed by MVP, and then that didn't go anywhere. That was a complete fucking failure. So they got put back in NXT. Shane Thorne was technically on the main roster still as part of Retribution, but MVP went on to manage Bobby Lashley in the Hurt Business instead, which was obviously amazing, and we're still seeing that now in AEW. But Duke Hudson stayed in NXT, did the whole Chase U thing, and I thought he had a lot of potential. And I thought the video that he put out talking about his release the other day was very well done. He's very creative, so hopefully he gets another opportunity elsewhere. Honestly, of all the cuts, he disappointed me the most because I feel like he was a guy that you could have called up, whether he was a babyface, not necessarily doing the comedy thing, but like he had a good look. The guy could talk. He was a good enough worker. Kind of fit like he checked off every box that WWE looks for in their talent as far as someone they could push on the main roster. Maybe they just didn't really see a place where they could push him or utilize him. I guess that's what it was. But I thought that was disappointing, honestly. But back to Boogs Cruz for a second. He had said, "How would you book Solo Sikoa from now until WrestleMania? I personally tie him into Priest somehow and move Drew onto a bigger program." Solo and Damian would be something different. We've never seen Solo Sikoa versus Damian Priest to my knowledge. They could do that. I think we get Solo and Jacob Fatu. I mean, I would love to see Jacob Fatu versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. I don't think they're going in that direction, just based on what we've seen from Roman and whatnot. So, I think we get Solo and Jacob, though. I feel like that match makes the most sense. Now, who do you turn? Is there a babyface in that feud, in that match? I don't know, because I would not turn Solo. He gets enough heat. You could turn Jacob, but they're clearly booking him like a top heel on SmackDown, so I'm not really sure if you turn either of them, to be perfectly honest with you. Um, but that's what I see Solo doing. They're going to tease, like, who's the real leader of that group. Jacob Fatu is taken over in Solo's absence. There really is no tribal chief as part of this, fucking Timu Bloodline now on SmackDown because Roman Reigns took back the Ula Fall on the Raw Netflix premiere last month. So what do you do with the guys? I don't know. I mean, I think Solo is going to take exception to the fact that Jacob Fatu has kind of stolen the spotlight on SmackDown while he's been gone. And that leads to a match between the two at WrestleMania. Ahmed joining us in the chat saying, yo, Ahmed, thank you for joining us on a Saturday morning, soon to be Saturday afternoon here on the East Coast to talk SmackDown and the releases. Daniel Malcolm had said, I don't get when people tweet such and such better not pick up the phone as if that'll stop them from getting the axe. Could you imagine if, like, these people did not pick up their phone? Imagine if they didn't have a phone, okay? They had a fucking landline or they were out in the wilderness. You can't get fired from WWE or any job, I guess, if you're not notified about it, right? I mean, they may not show up for work, but let's say they're out in the wilderness or something. They don't have their phone. They don't have a phone. And they can never pick up that phone call to be notified that they were released. They were probably released to the rest of the world, but in your own mind, you're still technically with WWE. So JTG put it best. Don't pick up your damn phone. And maybe if they forget your number, they won't call you to let you know that you got cut, or they just forget about you being on the roster. That's very possible. Nathaniel had said, do you think Charlotte beats Tiffany at WrestleMania? I do. We talked about that on WrestleRant Radio on Thursday. It's just a reality that people have to deal with. I do think Tiffany is losing that WWE Women's Championship to Charlotte at WrestleMania. It should be a great match. Don't get me wrong, but I do think we're getting a new champion in the form of Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania. The quicker we bow down to the Queen and just accept it and move on, the easier and less painful this will all be. I promise you. But also on the cut list, AOP, Authors of Pain, and Paul Ellering. Now, I thought this was interesting. One, because I liked Final Testament, but two, because they were only brought back a year ago. Now, they were brought back to television a year ago. They were actually rehired by WWE a lot earlier than that. They were probably brought back sometime in 2023, maybe May of 2023. I had seen maybe Fightful had reported that at one point. They were brought back a few years ago, and WWE just kept it quiet, had no plans for him until they put him with Karrion Kross. And I like the idea of a group with Karrion, AOP, Paul Ellering, Scarlett, but they didn't really have any meaningful plans for the group. Now, they did have feuds. They feuded with the Bobby Lashley Pride group, Lashley and BFAB and the Profits at WrestleMania. They got a WrestleMania match out of this run, so you can't take that away from the guys. Paul Ellering back in his second run, third run, whatever the fuck it would be, with WWE. Got a WrestleMania appearance at WrestleMania 40 out of it for a fun street fight against Bobby's crew. So there was that. They were moved to Raw. Didn't really do much before feuding with the Wyatt Six. And I thought that feud was fine. And they actually beat the Wyatt Six in that multi-person tag team match on Raw back in November, I think. And that may have been the last time AOP wrestled on TV. I don't watch Main Event anymore, so they may have had a match on Main Event. But they won that match. And then I don't know if it was because a member of the Wyatt Six got hurt, which I heard, but for whatever reason, they kiboshed that feud. And they cut it cold. They moved the Wyatt Six to SmackDown, which is where they are now. And I'll talk about them a little bit later on in the Alexa Bliss match. But they never got that, the Wyatt Six never got that win back over the Final Testament. So technically on television, I think their final match that they had on TV, they fucking won. And they got cut anyway. Now, again, like I said, I like the Final Testament. To see them get cut isn't entirely surprising. They have not been on TV in a while. Karrion Kross has been doing his own thing on TV as of late as like the whole fucking manipulator and mastermind with Sami Zayn, among other people, which I like. I think this is the best use of Kross since he came back to the company, dating back to his initial NXT run in 2020. I've been liking what he's doing, but it doesn't really need AOP and Paul Ellering. I mean, Karrion's even lucky that Scarlett didn't get fired because she doesn't really serve much of a purpose either. She looks great. I like Scarlett. I think she's a great accessory to the act. But what he's doing right now, we're not even really seeing even her on television. So he's lucky that she did not get caught up in those cuts as well. Um, my only thing is with people like AOP and Paul Ellering, they're not like a massive. It's not a massive, cut from the company. It's not a massive loss for WWE. But at the same time, it's like, okay, you brought these guys back. At least with Sonya Deville, her contract was expiring. Vince or no Vince, they're still cutting people without seeing their deals through. The Cedric Alexander release actually fucking bothered me because reportedly he re-signed less than a year ago. They put him in NXT, which I liked. I thought that was a great use of Cedric. They're probably paying him main roster money. I mean, even Baron Corbin had said in that interview with Chris Van Vliet that they were paying him main roster money. They told him to take a pay cut, and he did. I imagine if they're telling fucking Baron Corbin to take a pay cut while he's in NXT, they're saying the same thing to Cedric Alexander. Didn't save their jobs. They cut the guy anyway. They cut Baron Corbin anyway. They cut Cedric Alexander anyway. So that's probably why they cut Cedric, but then why fucking re-sign him in the first place? Honestly, it really surprised me when they re-signed him about a year ago. He spent 8.5 years in that company. Cedric is very talented. Cedric is great, but it became clear to me right after the Hurt Business disbanded, they have no plans for this guy. He really never really amounted to much on the main roster. They had an opportunity when he moved over from 205 Live. Cedric is great, and they didn't do fucking shit with them. Any of the 205 Live guys, they kind of had a stench on them. Oh, you're a cruiserweight. We're not really going to do much with you. Buddy Murphy was the same. Mustafa Ali was the same. They never really got beyond a certain level. And Cedric's like mic skills were never great, but the guy was talented enough in the ring where you could have found a role for him. And I thought the Hurt Business was great. And now the thought goes to, okay, now that he's gone from WWE, and he said see you in 90, which tells me, okay, he's under a WWE main roster deal, because the NXT deals, you only have 30-day non-competes. Um, but my first thought is, as is everyone else's, he's got to go to AEW if he wants to. I know Big Swole, his wife was there, didn't have the most pleasant departure from that company. But I would like to see Cedric in AEW alongside the new Hurt Syndicate, being Bobby and MVP and Shelton. And they've teased adding more members and expanding the group and kind of passing the torch to new young talent that want to join the group. They have given their cards to a lot of people, but they have yet to officially recruit anyone. I know it's 3 months away. I would wait for that spot to be Cedric Alexander. I know there's been talk of it, like, oh, what about Powerhouse Hobbs? So at this point, it's just better off on his own, honestly. Him, I've heard people say Lee Johnson or EJ and Duca. They're both great. EJ and Duca specifically, I think, has potential. But at this point, Cedric Alexander will not be the next world champion in AEW. But I think as a part of that group, especially given his ties to the group from years ago, I don't see how you don't bring in Cedric. If they're interested and he wants to go there, I don't see how they don't bring him in. But like I said, I'm honestly surprised WWE kept him around for as long as they did, because they have not done shit with Cedric for a very, very, very long time. I enjoyed his most recent NXT run, but clearly they were still paying him main roster money, and they're tighter on the books now about like paying people if they're not really doing anything with them. WWE is making more money hand over fist where they could afford to keep these people, obviously. But with Cedric, he was there for so long. They clearly had no plans for the guy aside from putting other people over. We'll just get rid of him, so I'm not shocked. But hopefully he can turn this into a positive by going to AEW and reuniting rather with the Hurt Syndicate. Nathaniel Cranshaw had said, I wonder when Becky will come back. We had talked about this on Tuesday on #AskGSM. One of the questions was, will she be back before WrestleMania or after WrestleMania? And I said before WrestleMania. I can't imagine that there's all this talk of Becky being involved in a significant storyline on the road to WrestleMania, and then she comes back after Mania. I would be very surprised. Abu Sika joining us. Thank you for joining us, Abu Sika, saying, ahoy, Graham. Abu Sika, thank you for joining us. Great to see you in the chat. Daniel Malcolm as well, saying, why not throw AOP in the tag team division, given how lackluster it currently is? That was my thought as well. Did we ever get, by the way, an AOP Viking Raiders match / feud? Feud, probably not. Match, they must have had a match at some point, right? I mean, they were both on the main roster in 2019, 2020. 2020, they were barely fucking around with AOP because they got hurt a lot, but we must have gotten a Viking Raiders AOP match at some point. I would find it very hard to believe if we didn't. I know recently the Viking Raiders were gone, and then when they were brought back to TV upon being reunited and winning the World Tag Team titles, AOP were kind of off TV at that point. So I don't know if they had a match this past year, but they must have had a match a couple of years ago. Both teams are former NXT Tag Team Champions. I think AOP got called up right when the Viking Raiders came in, so I don't think they ever really crossed paths. I think Viking Raiders got brought into NXT right when AOP got called up in 2018. So they may not have had a match then, but I feel like it would have been impossible for them to not have a match in like 2019, early 2020, but I could be wrong. My point is that as a match or a feud, I don't know how many people would have given a shit, but that's a feud that you could have done over the World Tag Team titles on Raw. There's not a whole lot of teams, or they do have a fair amount of teams, but they're not really doing a whole lot with these teams. You could have had AOP around to work with these teams, like a Viking Raiders, giving them a quick title defense. Viking Raiders, or I'm sorry, I keep calling them fucking Viking Raiders. They're the War Raiders. Thank God. They could have beaten AOP. They could have faced AOP and beaten AOP. Quick Hossman fight, and that could have been it, but they didn't even do that. So that's disappointing. That would have been a nice team for War Raiders to defend against and keep them busy as tag team champions, but we didn't see that. Abu Sika saying in the chat, AOP essentially got a free paycheck with how little they were used. Weren't they also signed a while back before appearing with Cross? Yeah, that's what I said earlier. I think they were signed like in 2023. They returned to WWE TV alongside Cross in January of last year on that New Year's Evil show. I remember that because it was the first SmackDown of 2024. But I think they were re-signed like in early 2023. And they just didn't know what to do with them. Paul Ellering was there as well. And I love the fact they reunited that act from NXT. But they didn't really do enough to justify, keeping them around, I guess, in their eyes. My thing is, though, like with these contracts and shit, at least with Sonya, the deal was expiring. They're letting her go because they have no interest in re-signing it. That makes sense to me. But like AOP, I imagine they signed a 3-year deal. Why not hold on to them and use them to put over other people until their deals are done? Unless they wanted to leave and they requested their release, which I can't imagine they did. They don't seem like the type of talent to be like, oh yeah, I could go to AEW and be used a whole lot fucking better. Like, I doubt it. When they weren't in WWE this most recent time, when they were fired 5 years ago, they were nowhere. I think they actually attempted to start their own promotion or wrestling show or event, and they fucking screwed people out of money or something like that. Very sketchy shit. I don't know if that show ended up ever happening. But then they flew under the radar for a while before coming back to WWE. So I can't imagine that we see them in AEW at this point, or Ring of Honor, or even TNA. They're probably just gonna do indies and shit. Paul Ellering is God knows how old, and it was cool seeing him back in WWE, but they weren't really doing a whole lot with them. It's just like, use these people until their deals are done. I don't really see the point in bringing people in for like a year if you had them sign a 3-year deal and then releasing them. Cedric Alexander, again, How long do they sign him for? 3, 5 years at least? They don't have people sign year-long deals typically. So they had him sign a new deal, and they fucking fired him a year in anyway. So, like, what was even the point? They put him in NXT right after signing that new deal a year ago. So why even bother doing that? That just doesn't really make sense to me. Daniel Malcolm says Chelsea Green is now the last person standing from 2015 Tough Enough. Yeah, I didn't think about that. And even she was fired a couple times because she didn't get hired from 2015 Tough Enough. She did not get hired from that season. A whole bunch of people got fucking hired. She was not among them. And she went to TNA instead. And she had success there. And obviously she came to WWE, I think, in 2018. And, obviously she got fired in 2021. She was only ever in NXT at that point. Then she got brought back in 2023. So, yeah, but of everyone that was on that season of Tough Enough, she's the only one that is on the roster currently. Abu Sik is saying, didn't AOP try to start their own wrestling promotion when they got cut the last time? Yeah, that's what I was just talking about. I think they tried to start their own promotion, and people paid to go to the shows, or they were not paying talent, or something like that, and they never put on the show. They were like swindling people. Very sketchy shit. Again, I could be wrong about that. Don't want to slander them if that's inaccurate information, but I heard something along those lines, and I was surprised, honestly, that WWE brought them back. I mean, they were always Triple H guys. Triple H used them fairly well in NXT for as long as they were there. So I wasn't really shocked they were brought back, but it's not like they were lighting the world on fire when they were gone from WWE. You mentioned Sonya Deville, though. She is another one gone from WWE. Not yet, though. I think it's when her contract expires in a couple of weeks. So it's one of those situations where they're waiting until the deal expires, and then they're not going to resign the deal. They're not going to renew her deal. Jordan Bailey joining us in the chat. He said, I was at SmackDown last night. I had a good time. Jordan, glad you had a good time. I fucking hated that ending, which we'll get into. I have to kind of make this an abbreviated review just because I got to get going soon. So this will be a much quicker stream than we're used to doing here on Saturday mornings, Saturday afternoons, just because I got to get going here in a little bit. But I'm glad you enjoyed the show, though. The 3-hour SmackDowns are a daunting endeavor. Just looking at it, thinking, man, that's a long fucking show. But I thought last night's show was better than the last couple of weeks, so I will give it that. As far as Sonya Deville is concerned, though, to see her get cut was surprising just because she's been there for so long. But that's another thing, though. She's been there for so long. Sonya Deville really hasn't had any major sort of success. I mean, if you want to include the GM stuff, which she did do very well, you can include that. She started doing that in 2021. I think they wrapped that up in, 2022. Then they put her back in the ring in the spring of 2022. So she was in the GM role for well over a year, probably almost closer to a year and a half. Then after that, they never really did much with her. She got hurt. She had the team with Chelsea Green. It didn't really go anywhere. And then, they were going to have success, and then she got hurt. The Magic Plumber, is that how you pronounce her name? The Magic Plumier. Hi, Graham, he says in the chat. Thank you for joining us. So she got hurt, came back, did the whole PFC thing. I thought, okay, cool. She's got her own group. This has potential. And PFC has been boring as fuck. Pure trash collective. I'm sorry. I'm not saying I'm glad she got cut, because I'm not. I'm just saying the group itself was clearly not working. And she's one of those talents, unlike Blair Davenport, the last name who got cut here that I haven't talked about. Blair Davenport, she's been under contract to the company for a couple of years now, but she was only on the main roster for less than a year. So that one I don't really understand because they never really gave her a chance to try to get over. I mean, she wasn't over. She had a couple of appearances on SmackDown, but that's just it. She was never really on SmackDown consistently. She didn't really win a whole lot of matches. She may have had maybe 4, 5, 6 matches on SmackDown in the last year, and she won maybe one of them. I remember she had a mini feud with Naomi. I think she lost both of those matches. No one really cared about that. That was really just to keep Naomi busy. But Blair Davenport's really good in the ring. I thought she was good in NXT. I enjoyed her, especially in NXT UK. Granted, a bigger fish in a smaller pond, but I enjoyed her in NXT UK. Never won any gold, though, on the main roster or NXT UK to my knowledge. Unless she did and I'm just not remembering. But she was someone I was more disappointed in. Just because they never really gave her a chance enough to see if she would shine on SmackDown on her own. Because she debuted, last spring? So then she got cut less than a year later without really doing much with her. She wasn't in the Women's Rumble, which probably should have been the first indicator that you're getting fired. Sonya Deville was in the fucking Rumble, and she got fired anyway. Oh, man, Jordan B said in the chat, just found out Isla Dawn got cut, which sucks. She wrestled Shotzi last night on Speed. That fucking sucks, man. You think she got the call this morning? They didn't want to cut her in person. That's kind of shitty. That's fucking shitty. The Magic Plumaire said, in your opinion, is Batista for the John Cena? I'm confused. I'm confused by your fucking question. I don't know what that means. If you can elaborate on that, I would love to answer it, but I don't know what you're talking about. Abu Sika said, I hate when they release people without giving them a fair shake. Yeah, she was one of those people. Blair Davenport was barely there. Listen, I will tell you this. Blair Davenport was never going to be the next four horsewoman. She was never going to be a top talent on that show. She was never going to be a Bianca or a Rhea. And you could also make the argument, well, we don't know that because they didn't give her a chance. I'm aware. I know that. But I'm just telling you, like, having seen her work in NXT, in NXT UK, and even in AEW when she was there for a very brief period many years ago before COVID, she was never going to be that type of talent. She was there to kind of put other people over, but they didn't even give her a shot to, try to get over. She was only there for a cup of coffee, and you can't even put other people over if you're never on the show. Does that make sense? Like, I think she could have been perfect. The weird thing is that women like Blair, Indy Hartwell, who I'm biased because I think Indy's great. I've known her for a long time. But Indy, Blair, Tegan, these are the women you could be using in your women's mid-card scene. Instead of going back to Meechin versus Chelsea Green for the upteenth fucking time, maybe you could be using more variety. I'm sorry, BFAB is not that good. I apologize. She's got like a nice aura about her. I know she gives off charisma. Compared to the three women I just mentioned, BFAB is fucking abysmal in the ring. I apologize, but she just is. So all the television time that you're devoting to BFAB in the ring, you could be giving to people like Blair Davenport or Indy or Tegan when they were there. Instead, they just cut all three of them. I mean, that just doesn't make sense to me. I'm sorry. Again, I'm not going to sit here and cry about Blair Davenport getting fired. I'm just saying, like, she and Duke Hudson at least had been there. Blair Davenport had barely. Duke Hudson was never even called up. But Blair Davenport never even gave her a chance. Meechin, I think, is great. Chelsea is obviously great. They're just going too farther into the feud. Abu Sika, I agree. No, exactly. He said, I like them both a lot. I'm just tired of the feud. Me too. Last night, Meechin's like, I'm not done with you. Bro, we got to move the fuck on. What are we doing here? We've seen this match how many fucking times since the fall? We need to move on. It's like Cody Rhodes and Solo Sikoa. I'm going to speed through this review because you talk about um, you talk about how Isla Dawn was on speed last night, Jordan, and she just got fired. You had mentioned, yeah, she posted "See you in 90 days" just now on Instagram. If you're talking about Isla Dawn, yeah, she got canned. She tweeted about that right before I went live. But what was I gonna say? I don't even know what I was fucking talking about. Yeah, you talk about speed and how she was on the show. I got to speed through this review before we get going here. But I will say this. The Magic Plumaire saying in the chat, again, if that's how you pronounce the name. If not, I apologize. But I think it's cool to pronounce it like that. You would say Blair Davenport was always to me like if WWE said, we have Jamie Hayter at home. That's actually kind of funny. That's I don't know if that's a mean thing to say, but that is funny. Jamie Hayter is 10 times the star that Blair Davenport is. But I like Blair. I always like Blair. I think she's good. I wasn't really a big fan of her work in AEW, but I thought she grew on me in NXT UK. I liked her presence and whatnot. Shawn Michaels was a big Blair Davenport fan. She was never NXT Women's Champion, but she did challenge for the championship at least a time or two. She challenged for the NXT UK Women's Championship a time or two. So she was clearly a Shawn Michaels girl, guy, whatever you want to call it, and not so much a Triple H girl was Blair Davenport, because clearly, and you can't even blame, it's a Vince McMahon thing, because there were a lot of people that got caught in the crosshairs of Vince and Triple H, and am I on the show, am I not on the show? No one really seems to blame Triple H, though. You know what I mean? Like, he's in charge now. I'm not saying he runs the entire company, because he doesn't. He's the chief content officer, creator, whatever the fuck his title is. But at this point, like, he is in charge, or at least has a say in these decisions as far as who gets cut and who doesn't. Like, it's not just Nick Khan and Ari Emanuel making these, decisions as far as, let's get rid of these people. I doubt Ari specifically has any knowledge of the creative in WWE. They're letting go of people that are barely on the show. So Triple H is clearly having a say in all of this. You could have made that argument a couple of years ago when Vince was there. Vince was making the calls of who to get rid of. Triple H, not so much. But at this point, Magic Plumaire saying, when are we going to have the honest convo about Hunter? I mean, it depends what honest convo we're going to have here. I'm not going to go all in on the guy and say that he sucks as a booker, because I think Triple H is a very good booker, all things considered. But, like, I hear these interviews of people who get cut, and they never really blame Triple H. I know Baron Corbin, who I think is great, had that interview with Chris Van Vliet, and he was like, oh, yeah, there was one person behind the scenes that really did not like me. okay, but Triple H at the end of the day, if he really liked you, he probably would have saved your job, right? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying Triple H is the one making these calls, but first of all, a couple different things here. One, it's like any sport. People get released from fucking sports teams all the time. Releases happen. WWE is not just going to hire everyone and not release anybody. That's just not realistic. They bring in new people all the time to NXT. They call up new people to the main roster all the time. Well, if you do that, you have to make room. So honestly, but here's the thing, it's not the fact that they release people, it's what goes into these decisions. And I still think when you release someone before their contract, which I guess they do in other sports as well, um, that I think is just dumb. It's like you brought an AOP for 3 years. Why not just use him for that time period? Or like a Cedric when you have him resign, but you cut him a year into his deal, less than a year into the new deal. That to me is also fucking stupid. I think that's really dumb. But like I look at the roster, I'm not going to say, oh, this person should have gotten released before that person. But you look at like, where's the value there? Or did we really try with them? And Blair Davenport, someone like Triple H, didn't even really try. So for all the praise that we give Triple H as a booker, we don't really talk about the negative parts of like, okay, he didn't really try with that person and that person just got cut. I know we're getting rid of Blair to make room for like a Roxanne Perez, who's awesome and she belongs on the main roster. But why Blair Davenport? There's plenty of other women that could have. I don't know. I don't know. I hate even saying like why Blair get fired and not this other person because I don't want to advocate for people getting let go. But I'm just always curious about what goes into these decisions. And again, this round of releases, let me just make it very clear. I'm not like upset over because I've gotten comments before from people on Twitter. Oh, like, oh, you're always saying this is missed potential. No, there have been plenty of people that they let go of in the last year or two that I was like, okay, I kind of understand that, or like Sonya Deville, that is not missed potential to me. She has been there for a fucking decade. They tried with her. She really hasn't been like. I think she had her best work during that Mandy Rose feud 5 years ago, and then the stalker thing happened, which was really unfortunate. She's obviously like all these people. I'm sure are great people, so it's nothing against them personally. But when she came back with the PFC shit last year, it's just been. It's put me. I'm sorry. It puts me to fucking sleep. It just puts me to fucking sleep. And honestly, of those three women, Zoe Stark is the newest. I think you could, keep her because I think there's more that you can get out of Zoe Stark. And she just debuted a year or two ago. Of the three, if you're going to get rid of any three of them, it's probably Sonya Deville because she's been there for a decade. Shayna, you could probably get rid of too, just because she's also been there for very long. And at this point, you've done everything you could possibly do with the woman. The booking has been all over the fucking place. A lot of that happened under Vince, but Triple H hasn't exactly made her a priority either. And at this point, I just don't care. But of the three, Sonya Deville is the least interesting to me at this point. So if you're going to get rid of any of them, it would be her. Now, again, it begs the question, do we have to get rid of anyone on the roster? I mean, they probably, her deal was expiring, so why sign her to a deal only to let her out of that deal within a year or two? You just don't re-sign her. So the Sonya Deville one, honestly, I understand the most. The other ones, I kind of have thoughts on. Let's look at the chat here for a second. Abu Sika said, with ticket prices rising, I saw someone call WWE expensive karaoke. Would you agree? I wonder what the karaoke part comes from. I mean, it's fucking expensive. The tickets are just ridiculous. You look at the Mania ticket specifically, it's just unbelievable, dude. Unbelievable. The Magic Plume My Hair said, wouldn't be surprised to see more women get cut with how many in NXT they have in the wings. That's what I'm saying. It's just that I wish they would. Like Tegan Knox, to me, that one doesn't make sense because like they rehired her only to not do anything with her, and then they got rid of her. That one bothers me. Indy Hartwell, I guess you kind of tried with in the Candice thing. She was there for a little bit. Um, Not that I understand that call, but like the Tegan Knox one was just fucking weird because she got fired under Vince. They brought her back, did nothing with her, and then let her go anyway. That was stupid to me. Well, like if you're gonna call up the Roxannes and the Jordan Graces, you got to make room for these new women. You're not gonna have a million people on this roster because then you're gonna have the conversation about, oh, why are they not doing anything with this person? It's like AEW. There's a million people on that fucking roster. Why are we not seeing more of Deonna Purrazzo or Thunder Rosa or this person or that person? Why is Athena still in Ring of Honor? That's a whole other question. Let's see. Freak like Najavit. I definitely mispronounced that. I botched the mispronunciation. I apologize. But he had said, Freak had mentioned, does the timing of these releases seem odd? We rarely see this on the road to WrestleMania. If they were cutting Sonya, why not do an angle on Raw where Zoe and Shayna beat her up? Is the timing odd? Yeah, a little bit. I mean, honestly, it might be a quarterly thing. because they got rid of people in November, almost exactly 3 months ago. Indy and Tegan's 90 days are officially up. So it might be like an every quarter thing that they revisit this. They got rid of people right after Mania last year. I know this isn't WrestleMania, but I mean, Sonya's contract was coming up, so she's kind of the exception. The rest of these people's deals were reportedly not up, and they just got fired out of nowhere. It does seem weird. We do not see this on the road to WrestleMania, but to be perfectly honest, it's a new regime. It's TKO. They probably work differently. They might look at the books every 90 days and be like, okay, who are we not using here? Who can we get rid of? Who are we bringing in that we can allocate the budget to and shit like that? That honestly might be how they work. I know I talked to someone who worked for NXT, like a high official. He's no longer there. But a couple of years ago, we did an interview and he had mentioned, yeah, we kind of look at people at the year mark after hiring them and say, okay, is there potential in this person? How are they coming along? Do we get rid of them or do we keep them around? I think it was like the 2 year mark he had mentioned, but at that point they had such a fucking turnover of talent. Thankfully, the turnover with WWE talent is not as bad as it was in 2020, 2021 when they were bringing people in, calling them up, and getting rid of them within months. Like back then, it was way worse when they were getting rid of people like Bronson Reed and Karrion Kross and Keith Lee, Swerve Strickland, who went on to become a massive star in AEW. I mean, that was fucking far more egregious. Releases happen. It sucks, and you always have to release some people, but they fucking happen. It's just the nature of the business. Um, but it's the timing of it is different than what they've done in the past. I agree. Busika said Zoe is nice in the ring if only she could get over. I mean, I thought she was getting over fine as part of the Becky Lynch feud. She beat Becky at least once or twice. She was teaming with Trish. She was on TV every week. Yeah, I thought she was getting over just fine as part of that. And then it just didn't really amount to much more than that. So I think Zoe's good, though. She's a very good wrestler. I mean, I know Salamonster specifically made the reference of kind of comparing her to Victoria, and I think that's a great comparison because she definitely feels like Victoria to me of from a couple decades ago. Jordan B saying I think Blair and Sonya will fit well in TNA. Yeah, I mean Sonya, yeah, I could see them both in TNA. I think Blair Davenport deserves some credit. Alexis said we just watched the newest episode of Severance again. LOL. Yeah, we did watch it for the first time the other day. It's a great episode. Dylan said, "What do you think of the crowd being silent when Carmelo came out last night?" I mean, I wouldn't really put much stock into it. The guy's been on a losing streak for months. I think Carmelo's fine. He beat Akira last night. I was kind of surprised, honestly, that that they had him and they're not really doing much with him, and then they have him win. Like I'm thinking, okay, the losing streak will amount to something, but then the losing streak gets snapped last night when he beats Akira, and then nothing really happened. So I thought that was kind of weird. They're silent for a lot of people, so I'm not really shocked. Alexa said Dylan said that Charlotte was bad on the mic again. Yeah, I mean it was better than Raw, but Raw was pretty bad. And then Freak also said bring back the Iconics. Listen, I like the Iconics, but for what reason? That's just getting into a role of like, yeah, they were entertaining, but like to do what? What are we doing with the Iconics? I know Boogs Cruise also agreed with bringing back the Iconics, but like, what's the reason as to why we're bringing back the Iconics? Just to hold the tag team titles again, the tag titles that don't mean anything. They held the tag titles already in WWE. They clearly had no plans for either woman on their own. I know that was under Vince, but they went to TNA for a cup of coffee. They both got pregnant. I think Peyton had 2 kids. Billy Kay may have had one. I think they want to get back in the ring and have like a reunion run or whatever, which is cool. But in WWE, I'm kind of over the Iconics. That might be a hot take. I don't really care. Like if they were in a Rumble, that's cool. But being back on like a regular basis in WWE, why? I mean, they have so many more women that are much better than they are, specifically in the ring and whatnot. Dylan said, I think all the releases were justified in my opinion. Cedric is joining the Hurt Business. I hope so. I think he's a great fit for that group. We saw that in WWE. I would love to see it. Jordan said, not going to lie, I thought Tozawa was going to win. So did I. I thought that would have made sense. You have fucking Tozawa win, and then it's like, okay, Tozawa wins, and then we keep the losing streak going. What's the story here? And then he didn't fucking win. Freak said the Iconics and Pretty Deadly could have some hilarious segments. I mean, yeah, they could work well together, but again, if that's the ceiling for what we could do with them in WWE, then probably I wouldn't bring them back just for that. Abu Sika said Spears stays getting. Oh, what are we talking about here? Spears stays getting Peyton Cassie pregnant. LOL. Yeah, I mean, she's been pregnant twice. God bless them both. Jordan B said, when Carmelo was wrestling last night, we chanted airball at him. Oh, that's funny. That's really funny. Because when Tozawa did it, that was pretty fucking funny. He goes, airball on the backstage segment. There is just, honestly, let's just cut to the chase here. We talked a while about the releases. We're not just going to do a full-on SmackDown review. There's just so much from the show. There's just, honestly, I just don't even really feel like it. I know that's what we're advertising this as a SmackDown review, but I'm going to run off the results here, and I'll give you quick thoughts, not a full-on in-depth review, as we've done in the past, because I got to get going here in a couple minutes. But the opening segment, Cody and Jay teaming up against Jacob and Tamatanga. They set up the main event match in that segment. We are not getting Jay and Cody at WrestleMania. Just to be perfectly honest with you guys, I thought there may have been a couple people, we're getting Cody and Jay. I think Nick might still think from the other day that we're getting Cody and Jay. And maybe you know what, maybe he still thinks that, but and maybe it's not necessarily Cody, but someone else. I don't think we're getting Cody and Jay at WrestleMania, sorry to say. The Street Profits promo, I agree, Freak. That was a very good promo. We had a DIY in the ring later on. They lost it Pretty Deadly for them to earn a future opportunity at the titles. Kind of a throwaway match, but if you want to set up Pretty Deadly, getting a title shot after helping DIY with their shit in the last couple of months, that's fine. Crowd didn't really care about it because I think Pretty Deadly are still heels. DIY are still heels. Weird dynamic, but I thought that was fine. We had a women's elimination chamber qualifying match. Two of them, actually. Bianca beating Piper Niven. Outcome was never in doubt, but they always work well together. I liked the match for what it was. I think Jade might be legit hurt. I thought she was not legit hurt. I think that's the new report, is that she has been legit hurt. Hopefully that's the reason why. I don't want to say I'm hoping she's hurt, but I hope that's the case, because why else would we have not gotten any progression on the Bianca, Naomi, Jade Cargill front? They really got to hurry that shit up. So Bianca is in the chamber. Could we get Bianca and Rhea? Because we all know that Tiffany is being chosen by Charlotte. Could we be getting Bianca and Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania for the Women's World Championship? It's possible. I don't think it happens, but it's definitely possible. Mario said, did you mass exit during DIY Motor City Machine Guns at the Rumble like everyone else? No, because I watched the match. I was at the Rumble. I was in the press box. I did not mass exit. I mean, I saw people mass exiting. It was after the Women's Rumble. It was the cool down match. And the match should have gotten more time. I liked the match. Dylan said, I hated how Solo attacked Cody again. Also, Jimmy is better on the mic than Jay. Street Profits promo was great. And same with Kevin Owens' car promo. The Kevin Owens car promo was really good. The ending, I fucking hated. That Solo thing was awful. I want to get through the other parts of SmackDown quickly so we can talk about that before we leave. Drew McIntyre is officially on SmackDown. He qualified for the Elimination Chamber, pinning LA Knight, which surprised me. Jimmy Uso was right fucking there. You had Jimmy Uso right there, and you pin LA Knight instead. Why? Jimmy might be better on the mic, have more like depth on the mic, but compared to Jay, he is not remotely even close over. He's just not. He's just not nearly as many people give a fuck about Jimmy Uso as they do about Jay. I think Jimmy's fine, though. I thought this was an entertaining triple threat. Correct outcome. The only reason I am okay with Drew pinning LA Knight is if they build to a future feud between the two going into WrestleMania. I don't think they have to build the feud about, their heat or whatever and getting your shit in the Rumble and, LA Knight having heat on him. I think that was kind of overblown stuff and it didn't really matter. I wouldn't do the feud over that. I heard what LA Knight said during his promo. Oh, I got to get my stuff in. That was funny. I'm not saying do a feud between them just for that reason alone. Do a feud between them because it makes fucking sense. And nothing against Damian Priest, but LA Knight and Drew makes more sense as a Mania match than Drew and Damian Priest. I like Damian Priest, but we've already seen that before. It already headlined Clash of the Castle. Why the fuck would we need to see that match again? That wouldn't make any sense to me. I think LA Knight and Drew is much more appealing as a match. It's not exactly Drew competing for a world championship in Mania, but Drew's also now in the chamber. Could he win the whole thing again like he did last year and face Cody at Mania? It's possible. They teased it a couple of weeks ago. It would be a fresh match. Drew was the last person to pin Cody one-on-one. I would not be opposed to that. Oh, wait, what, Vince? You talking about Vinci? Oh, wow. Okay. Breaking news from Abu Sika in the chat. Vinci, Gallows, and Anderson also just got cut. Whew. You think AJ Styles is mad about Gallows and Anderson? He's going to have another fit? Remember when they blamed, wasn't Gallows hurt, by the way, and Karl Anderson was around? Interesting. So that's from PW Insider. Fightful also confirmed. That was from 10 minutes ago. Interesting. Vinci, I'm trying to find Vinci on the timeline here. Gallows and Anderson getting fired is not too shocking. Just because they have done fucking nothing. Vinci getting fired should not be shocking at all. They tried to push him with those vignettes, and I thought it was interesting. I was kind of looking forward to it, and then it was just they never really went forward with that at all. They never really did much with it, Giovanni Vinci. Sorry, I'm trying to look at the timeline to see like the news about these cuts. But yeah, AJ Styles I remember blamed fucking uh, Paul Heyman and Vince. Remember that a couple of years ago? Well, Paul Heyman's not in charge anymore, and Vince isn't there either. So he's gonna have to blame his buddy Triple H. You know what I'm saying? Like everyone blames Vince, and rightfully so. The guy's a piece of shit. But some of these things are not in Vince's hands anymore. You can't blame Vince. You got to blame the guy in charge, that being Triple H, among other people. But like again, if Triple H really wanted to keep these people, he could, but he didn't. So, listen, he brought them back to reunite with Styles back in 2022. Honestly, the whole reason why they were even brought back was it was a make good. The only reason they were brought back was as a make good for the fact that Triple H promised them 5-6 years ago, oh yeah, we'll give you big contracts to stay. We'll give you a big fucking, upgrade or, a lot of money to stick around. And then they got fired by Vince without Triple H knowing about it seemingly at the time, okay? And the only reason why they were brought back was so Triple H felt bad about it, and now they just got cut anyway. They were probably not brought back for peanuts. So for them to be being paid whatever the fuck they were getting paid to do absolutely nothing after that Judgment Day feud in late 2022, like these guys literally were committing highway robbery to just sit on the sidelines and do absolutely fucking nothing. And Gallows and Anderson were a very popular team, successful team coming into WWE in 2016. I get that. I understood the buzz at that point. The booking sucked. They ruined them within like a year. Not even. They probably gave them 6 months and they fucking ruined them by that point. But it's not like Gallows and Anderson were lighting the tag team division on fire, even if they were being used in 2024, 2025. They wouldn't have. They weren't. They were in NXT getting paid big money from the main roster to do absolutely fucking nothing. Almost nobody gave a shit about Gallows and Anderson in 2024, 2025. So again, I'm not saying I'm glad they got released because I'm not. I'm just saying that one, I couldn't even tell you like, oh, I'm really surprised that this person got fired, or I'm really surprised about that one. I'm not. Like these people, like they were barely on the fucking show. They were never really on the show. Vinci deserved definitely to be, get more of a shot on the main roster. And, they had the vignettes and shit like that, and I thought that had potential. And then they just did nothing with them. So that just didn't really. That sucks. Abu Sika said, I didn't know Gunther Kaiser legit didn't like Giovanni Vinci. Is that confirmed though? I know that's a lot of rumors and stuff like that. I don't know if that's actually the case. Dylan said Gallows and Anderson are the Ben Simmons of WWE, getting paid big checks and sitting on the bench for it. Pretty much. There really wasn't a whole lot to note from this show. Alexa Bliss also qualified for Elimination Chamber against Candice. I like that. Bliss being in Chamber makes sense. They teased Tiffany and Charlotte. I like that. Nia and Charlotte or Tiffany next week, seemingly out of nowhere, for the WWE Women's Championship. I mean, they've been building to it, but it was weird just how it kind of came out of nowhere, and it's not happening on a pay-per-view because they've been intertwined for so long. Abu Sika said Vinci should have never tried to flirt with Tiffany allegedly. Again, that's just allegedly. We don't know that for a fact. I had seen that same story, but we don't know that as a fact. Until we get his side of the story or Kaiser's, we just don't know. He also said Gunther and Kaiser weren't following Gio on any socials when they broke up. Maybe there was some heat there, I don't know. Unless they were really trying to keep kayfabe. The only other thing I'll say about the show is that the final segment, like I said earlier, that we did a quick rant on at the beginning of this review, Solo attacking Cody again, who gives a shit? We've been here before. I don't give a fuck. Like, it's just fucking stupid. I just don't care. I don't care about Cody Rhodes feuding with Solo Sikoa again. We saw this 2 years ago. We saw it last year. Why are we doing this again? I know that's not the Mania match. But, like, bro, why do you even have Solo come back to attack Cody? Why not attack Damian Priest or some shit like that? Why does it have to be Cody Rhodes? Like, even the main event, Cody and Jay against Tama Tonga and Jacob Fatu, we literally saw the exact same match a month ago with Cody teaming with the other Uso, Jay Uso, or Jimmy Uso at that point. It was Jay Uso last night. It was Jimmy Uso a month ago. They had the exact same fucking match. I just don't understand why we have to keep going back to these matches that, one, don't matter, and two, what's the end game here? Another Cody solo match? We saw it at SummerSlam. We saw it inside of a steel cage. We saw it on SmackDown last summer. We saw it back in March of 2023. Why are we still doing this with this feud? Who cares? Who gives a shit? I thought the show was fine. I know we've talked a lot more about the releases, the breaking news on releases and whatnot. A lot of these names do not surprise me. But SmackDown itself, I thought it was good. I just did not like that final segment. What the fuck are we doing on Friday nights? That is my question for you guys. What the fuck are we doing on Friday nights? Now with the Bloodline being back with Cody, Chelsea and Michin still feuding. What are we doing? They have a very good roster on Fridays, but I just don't understand why we're going back to this. So I appreciate you guys tuning in for the abbreviated. I say abbreviated, but it's already been almost an hour. We were going to go a little shorter than that, but we just had a lot of time to talk about these releases, and I guess perfect timing for it because they're still coming out. Gallows and Anderson, damn, not too shocking there, but I guess we're still getting releases throughout the weekend, so keep posted on that. If there are any more releases that we did not discuss here, we could talk about it on Tuesday on #AskGSM and next Thursday on WrestleRant Radio. So keep posted to here to the YouTube channel. We go live every Tuesday, Thursday, and usually on Saturdays as well, reviewing SmackDown, answering questions on Tuesdays, Thursdays, talking all the news and reviews and shit like that. Oh, wait, hold on a second here. Marios in the chat saying Otis also got cut, ? Jordan said when they went to commercial after Jay's entrance for the main event, they kept the music playing and he was just yeeting throughout the break. That's pretty funny. Thanks for the insight on that. That's pretty funny. But Otis also got cut. Dylan, yes, they do need to build Cody's opponent for WrestleMania. It better not be Solo Sikoa, I'll tell you that much. Giovanni Vinci fired. I'm seeing that. Is Otis fired? Otis was just in the Rumble like a couple days ago. Let's see. Is Otis gone? Can someone let me know for where did that come from? Where did is that a question or are you just asking? Let's see here. Yeah, I'm wondering. Nabusika, same thing. Is Otis actually gone? I would be very surprised if Otis got fired. I am not seeing where you saw that though. I'm not seeing that on Twitter right now. So we might wrap up here and he might actually be gone. But I don't, unless he put that on Instagram. I'm not seeing that on Twitter. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe you're just guessing if he cut. I don't know. Well, so is Sonya, to be fair. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe his contract's up or something. I'm not really sure. I don't know. We'll keep an eye out for it, but like I said, we'll talk more about it on Tuesday and on Thursday. Hit the bell button to be notified every single time we go live here on the channel, guys. I appreciate you so much for tuning in. Be sure to hit the like button, like the video, the thumbs up button, rather, to like the video. All the support is immensely appreciated, as I mentioned. And that's about it. So enjoy the rest of your weekend, guys. If you work for WWE, turn off your phone. I know we were joking about that earlier. I didn't expect to get breaking news on these releases here today, but I guess the timing just worked out well. And unfortunately for them, best of luck to them all in their future endeavors. Dylan said, see you later, bro. I don't know if he's talking to me or if he's talking to Otis, but nonetheless, I appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll catch you right here on the next one. So, till then, guys, have an awesome one. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.